Hey folks, welcome to the Edens Table. My name's Timothy, though some people do call me Tim. Today, we're going to go ahead and answer the question, should you tell your players the DC? One of the reasons that we like to hide information as Dungeon Masters is because we're concerned that every time we give out a piece of information, it pulls people out of the game, out and away from the narrative that we're trying to create. It would be pretty weird if when we were watching The Lord of the Rings, we saw little numbers floating up here and there and everywhere as people were trying to decide whether or not they could pull off this jump, whether they could climb down this ledge, whether or not they could outrun those goblins. Every time those DCs come up, it sort of pulls people out of the story. But there are some parts of the game that provide the information that we need in order to roleplay properly. And that's what difficulty classes can do for us when we reveal them to the player. Tension can be enhanced by having a target. That mystery climb where we don't know how difficult it is can be, in my mind, a super deadly cliff that the player should be really fearful of. And in somebody else's mind, it could be this shallow slope that the DM is just trying to delay the game by making you roll because he just said, hey, there's a cliff face. And you're like, well, okay, no big deal. My character's good at athletics and it's just a cliff face, whatever. One thing to remember is that your descriptions are never as good as you think they are. What I'm saying is that what comes out of your mouth translates through somebody else's brain into what they hear. So they don't really know what you're trying to explain just because you've used all the little keywords. Now we can get really good at descriptives to where we can bridge some of that gap and it can be easier for our players to understand. We can also get really, really wordy and lengthy and talk too much and keep telling people all of the different words and details until they're so bored that they're not listening to us anymore. Ultimately, your descriptions tell part of the story, but the other part of the story that we can tell is the difficulty class. The difficulty class bridges the difference between your understanding of the difficulty of a task and the player's understanding of that same difficulty. If I tell somebody who has a +5 in athletics, this is a DC 5 athletics climb, they know that it's a trivial thing. Why am I making them roll, right? This is a complete waste of their time and it's just nothing. If I tell them it's a DC 25, they know that this is a sharp switchback, overhang, nasty mess with tiny little finger holds and slick rain running down the side, and that they have almost no hope of pulling off the task. Those simple mathematical equations that we run in our head of this plus this equals what is what tells us whether or not something's possible, and it gives us the information to properly imagine the scene. And imagining the scene properly leads us to better role-played choices. It leads us to the barbarian swaggering confidently, or the barbarian looking up and saying, maybe we should grab a rope and some grappling hooks, and we should find a way around this. Your descriptions are never as good as you think they are. Using the DC allows you to bridge between your descriptive text and what the player is envisioning in their mind. In Dungeons & Dragons, at times, when you're using it correctly, tension can be enhanced by having a target. Having the difficulty class out there and available when that all-important dice roll is on the line, and they know, I've only got to roll a 7 to pull this off, or hey, I have to roll a 16 plus in order to pull this off. There's been plenty of times that's come up at your table and tension is palpable. People are watching the roll. Every little bounce of the dice drives people wild, waiting to find out the outcome and anxious, excited to learn how it's going to turn out. That kind of thing is everybody's bread and butter. But if the difficulty class is hidden and there's no knowledge of what you're looking for, it's just a waiting game and a hand behind the back trick from the DM where you roll, you hope that the DM's being honest, or maybe that they're cheating in your favor, because, who doesn't like that? We'll get into a whole nother video about that some other time, I'm sure. Having that tension at the table as people await the right roll on the dice can really enhance a tense situation in the game and add to those layers and layers of tension. It also allows us to make proper decisions and choices when we know the armor classes of our opponents after testing them a little bit, being able to see that there's consistency, the heavy armored opponents with the high AC, the slow moving slug monster with the low armor class. We instinctively know one's got high AC and the other one's got low, but having a target number helps us us to envision, whoa, the layered plating of that golem and the like sluggish, just slow movement of that ooze monster. We can picture both a little bit better by knowing the DC. It also helps us to save that time in order to keep the narrative flowing so that we can just, I hit, this happens, whoa, let's see how much damage I do, or, oh, dang, crack, I miss, and it just glances off of his armor. We can dive into those descriptives and streamline our flow that little bit more, but not if we hide the difficulty class. If players are left trying to guess and figure out the armor class of the monsters, which is just a difficulty class for an attack roll, they're going to just continually be trying to game the system and figure it out, and after 4 or 5 attacks, they're pretty much gonna know the armor class anyway. So you're not hiding anything that they won't learn for themselves. All you're doing is making them think more about the mechanics and less about their character's situation and roleplay. That said, as I always say, there's always more than one opinion. Just ask my wife. And in this case, that is the tension is enhanced by mystery. Keep an eye out for a video detailing when you should hide difficulty classes, because there is no one hard rule for when you should show and when you should hide it. It's an art. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you're interested in watching more, feel free to check out this next video up here or hit the subscribe to be warned when the next thing comes up. Have a great day.